On a cold March morning in 2022, 18-year-old Naomi Irion sat in her car in a Walmart parking lot in Fernley, Nevada, scrolling through her phone as she waited for her work shuttle to arrive. It was just after 5 in the morning, and the parking lot was mostly empty. Naomi was doing what so many of us do while waiting, staying connected on social media, passing the time. Between 5:10 and 5:23 in the morning, she was active online, likely texting friends or checking her feeds. She had no idea that in just 1 minute her life would change forever. At 5:24 in the morning, surveillance cameras captured something chilling. A man wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, dark pants, and dark tennis shoes approached Naomi's vehicle. Within seconds, he entered her car. 1 minute later, at 5:25, the vehicle left the parking lot, but Naomi wasn't driving. The man in the hoodie was behind the wheel, and Naomi Irion had just been kidnapped in broad daylight from a public parking lot. To understand the tragedy of what happened to Naomi, you need to know who she was. This wasn't just another missing person case with a nameless victim. Naomi was a young woman who had lived an extraordinary life, even at just 18 years old. She had traveled the world with her family, following her father Hervé's career as a foreign expat for the U.S. State Department. Naomi had lived in France, Russia, Germany, and South Africa before returning to the United States as an adult. While in South Africa, she attended the American International School of Johannesburg, graduating in 2021. Naomi was known for her love of music. She played the ukulele and guitar, and she loved to sing. Her favorite color was the rainbow, and she wore it proudly with rainbow socks, rainbow patches on her jackets, and rainbows on her bag. Friends described her as someone who was always laughing, always spreading kindness, always radiating positivity. She had 3 younger brothers who had been adopted from Ukraine in 2018, and she had lost another brother, Sean Michael, who died in infancy back in 2002. Naomi had just turned 18 the previous July. She was at the beginning of her adult life, full of dreams and possibilities. But on that March morning, all of that was stolen from her in less than 60 seconds. When Naomi didn't show up for work and didn't come home, her family knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. This wasn't like her. Her sister reported her missing, and law enforcement began piecing together what had happened. The surveillance footage from the Walmart parking lot told a disturbing story. At the time of her disappearance, Naomi was described as 5 feet 11 inches tall, with dyed black hair and green eyes. She had been wearing a blue shirt, gray sweater, dark boots, and gray sweatpants. The man who took her was wearing that gray hooded sweatshirt and dark clothing, his face obscured, moving with purpose toward her vehicle. 3 days after Naomi disappeared, on March 15th, police found her 4-door sedan in an industrial area near Fernley. The car was there, but Naomi was not. Investigators immediately began forensic analysis of the vehicle, searching for any clue that might lead them to her. They also began looking for a suspect vehicle, a dark, newer model, Chevrolet Silverado high country truck that had been spotted in the area. Law enforcement launched massive search efforts, both on the ground and by air, combing through the Nevada landscape for any sign of the missing teenager. As days turned into weeks, the case gained national attention. On March 28th, the Federal Bureau of Investigation announced they would offer a reward of up to $10,000 for information leading to Naomi's location. The FBI placed her on their most wanted kidnapping and missing persons list. Her face was everywhere, her story shared across social media, her family pleading for anyone with information to come forward. But as each day passed without answers, hope began to fade. Then, on March 25th, police made an arrest. 41-year-old Troy Driver, a resident of Fallon, Nevada, was taken into custody. Driver had a dark history. At just 17 years old, he had pleaded guilty to being an accomplice to murder and had been involved in a series of armed robberies. Now, decades later, he was being charged with kidnapping Naomi Irion. His bond was set at $750,000. 4 days after Driver's arrest, on March 29th, police received a tip. Someone had information about Naomi's disappearance, information that led investigators to a rural site in Churchill County. What they found there confirmed everyone's worst fears. They recovered a body, and it was later confirmed to be Naomi Irion. She had been shot to death and buried in a shallow grave. With the discovery of Naomi's body, the charges against Troy Driver escalated dramatically. He was now facing murder, first-degree kidnapping, robbery, burglary of a motor vehicle, and destruction of evidence. According to the criminal complaint, Driver had kidnapped Naomi, shot her to death, and then buried her body in an attempt to avoid leaving evidence. Investigators discovered that he had disposed of Naomi's phone and had even replaced the tires on his truck, trying to cover his tracks. But the horror didn't end there. In July of 2022, prosecutors added another charge: sexual assault. They alleged that Driver had raped Naomi before killing her. The case against him was building piece by piece, painting a picture of a brutal, premeditated crime. In November, Driver was found mentally fit to stand trial. It seemed that justice would finally be served, that Naomi's family would get their day in court, that they would hear the full truth of what happened to their daughter, their sister, their friend. But on August 6, 2023, everything changed again. Prison personnel arrived for a routine inmate check and found Troy Driver dead in his cell. He had taken his own life through asphyxiation. The man accused of kidnapping, raping, and murdering Naomi Irion would never stand trial. He would never be convicted. He would never face Naomi's family in court and answer for what he had done. While Driver was never formally convicted, officials stated that the evidence against him was overwhelming. Forensic evidence, including his DNA, had been found on Naomi's body. The physical evidence, the surveillance footage, the timeline, everything pointed to his guilt. And in a final haunting detail, Driver left a note. In it, he apologized for the darkness within himself. It was an admission, a confession of sorts, but one that would never be tested in a court of law. For Naomi's family, Driver's suicide meant they would never get complete closure. They would never hear him explain why he targeted their daughter that morning. They would never get to confront him, to tell him about the vibrant, loving person he had taken from the world. Naomi's brother later spoke publicly about trying to find something positive from his sister's death, trying to honor her memory by spreading the same kindness and positivity that she had been known for. The case of Naomi Irion is a stark reminder of how quickly life can change, how vulnerable we all are in moments we consider routine and safe. A parking lot at a Walmart, a Saturday morning, waiting for a work shuttle. These are ordinary moments that millions of people experience every day without incident. But for Naomi, that ordinary moment became the last minutes of her freedom, and soon after, the last minutes of her life. What happened to Naomi Irion is every family's nightmare. A young woman full of life and promise, taken in broad daylight from a public place. Despite surveillance cameras, despite being in a visible location, despite doing everything right, she became the victim of a predator who saw an opportunity and took it. The randomness of it is perhaps the most terrifying aspect. There's no indication that Driver knew Naomi before that morning. She wasn't targeted because of anything she had done or anyone she knew. She was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a man with darkness inside him decided to act on his worst impulses. Naomi's story spread across the country, not just because of the tragic circumstances of her death, but because of who she was. People connected with her story, with the image of this rainbow-loving, music-playing young woman who had traveled the world and was just beginning her adult life. Her case became one of those that captures public attention, that makes people hold their loved ones a little tighter, that makes parents worry a little more when their children are out in the world. The investigation into Naomi's murder showed the dedication of law enforcement, from local police to the FBI, working tirelessly to find her and then to build a case against her killer. The tip that led to the discovery of her body, the forensic work that connected Driver to the crime, the surveillance footage that captured those crucial moments in the parking lot, all of it came together to create an overwhelming case. But in the end, Troy Driver's decision to take his own life meant that the full story would never be told in court, that questions would remain forever unanswered. Today, Naomi Irion is remembered not as a victim, but as the vibrant young woman she was. Her love of music, her colorful spirit, her kindness and laughter, these are the things her family and friends hold on to. Her story serves as a reminder to stay vigilant, to look out for one another, and to cherish every moment with the people we love. Because as Naomi's case shows us, life can change in an instant, and the people we love can be taken from us in ways we never imagined possible. The rainbow-loving girl who traveled the world and spread joy wherever she went deserves so much more than the fate that befell her on that March morning in Nevada. And while justice in the traditional sense was denied by Driver's suicide, the truth of what happened is known, and Naomi's memory lives on in the hearts of everyone who knew her and everyone who has heard her story. That's all for today. Thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to subscribe and be kind to each other.